Hello, 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 Sagittarius. I'm Poetic Heretic, and this is your September 2020 astrology forecast, where we take a look at the most significant astrological developments of the month and interpret them for your sign. Now, this month we are doing things a little bit differently in that rather than my having a written report in front of me that I read to you, I am instead interpreting the charts in real time. So that should be interesting. Also, I want to remind you again that videos like this will always be most accurate for your rising sign. So I recommend using them for your rising sign first and foremost. And then if you would like to after that, you may also, of course, use them for your sun and moon sign. All right, so with that said, let us begin. We are first looking at a chart here on screen for the end of the month. And the reason for that is this is an aspect that we must understand first if we are to really understand what the month of September is all about. Now, this is, of course, a chart for September 29th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, where we have the perfecting of the Mars-Saturn square. But what's really happening here, and you may recall this to some extent from my forecast last month, is Mars is having its extended stay in Aries as a result of an upcoming retrograde. And as Mars is slowing down the station retrograde this month, it's holding its position in those later degrees of Aries, about 25 degrees to 27 degrees of Aries. And as it is holding that position, it is doing so in a very stressful square with Saturn. And so that is essentially holding its position all month. And so we're basically stuck in this stressful, frustrating Mars square Saturn energy for the entire month of September. So that's something that you have to understand is happening constantly this month, and everything else that we go over in this video must be understood within that context. So to talk a little bit more about this, though, remember this is not a time where you want to allow yourself to be overly impulsive or to throw caution to the wind or anything like that, because in this Mars-Saturn square, Saturn has the upper hand. Mars is in very good condition to fight, but Saturn is in even better condition, essentially. Now, it's very frustrating because Mars wants to push forward and take action now and be spontaneous and impulsive, whereas Saturn is saying, no, we must stop, or we must slow down, we must do it right, we must go through the necessary processes, all of these things. And so your best bet right now, and this applies to everyone of every sign, is to slow down and do things right, do things the proper way, resist the impulse to take any kind of rash action, and stay disciplined. That will be better for you in the long run. So again, understand that that's happening this entire month of September. Now, let's also consider this for you specifically, Sagittarius, how this is manifesting. Well, we have Mars in your 5th house of creative self-expression. And so on one level, as Mars is having this extended stay in Aries, I mentioned this last month, but this bears repeating, you are experiencing a sort of extended review, a need for more time, patience, and presence with this area of your life, this area of creative self-expression. It's also fun, love, romance, risk-taking, children. These are all 5th house things. So we have that on one level. On another level, well, before we even delineate the Mars-Saturn square for you specifically, know that the outcome of this is something we're not going to see for quite a while yet, for really months to come, the full outcome of it. This is something that is with us essentially until January of 2021. However, with that said, for you, Sagittarius, this aspect is manifesting as a stressful situation involving focused action, motivation, desire, or willpower, as well as limitation, obstacles, authority, or the need to face a difficult reality that is pushing you into new areas of activity. And those new areas of activity, as well as the areas of your life most likely to end up being affected by this transit, are your creative self-expression, your how you spend time alone or your enemies, your money, your self-image, and or your communication, short distance travel, or what is familiar to you. And yes, if you can't tell, I'm doing this all in my head as we are going here. So if I pause for a moment, that is why. I'm just taking an extra second or two to calculate things. All right, so that's the Mars-Saturn square. We are in the midst of this frustrating energy this entire month of September. Yes, it's rough, but, every challenge happens for a reason. So it is what it is. You can do with that what you will. So everything else should be interpreted in that context. And speaking of which, the first major event we are going to look at then in sequential order this month is the full moon perfecting at 1:22 a.m. Eastern time on September 2nd. By the way, all times in this video are Eastern time. Adjust your time zone accordingly. Now, this full moon is in Pisces, so it is emphasizing the contrast between the earthy, practical energy of the sun in Virgo, as it is always in this time of year, and the dreamy, mystical, imaginative energy of Pisces. So it's reality versus fantasy. It's left brain versus right brain. Now, the full moon is also co-present with Neptune, the modern ruler of Pisces, and so that is also adding an element, even more so, another layer, another amplification of dreaminess, imagination, creativity, all that is spiritual and non-physical and supernatural, these sorts of things. The full moon is also in a very close sextile to Uranus in Taurus, and so there is also this added element of excitement, of inspiration, or an even better word, I guess, would be innovation, of that which is sudden, shocking, and unexpected, this electric energy of the new happening at and around the time of this full moon. Now, for you, Sagittarius, this full moon is occurring in your fourth house of home and family, and since the full moon is where things come to a head, you can expect things around this time to come to a head in the area of your home and family life. This can also be your living situation, anything involving homes or buildings that you want to live in, perhaps, your roots, your ancestors, and even sometimes in a more generalized sense, just your personal life, your private life. So things come into a head in that area for you on or around the full moon. Now, later that same day at 8:19 a.m. Eastern time, we also then have Venus opposite Saturn, and this creates an interesting contrast with that full moon because whereas the Pisces full moon is very dreamy and mystical, Venus opposite Saturn is very somber and serious. So what this will manifest as for you is someone or something is challenging you in the area of your money or self-image and or your partner's money, business, or issues of life and death that is involving how you relate to others, as well as obstacles, limitation, authority figures, or the need to face a difficult reality, and that will most likely end up affecting, give me a second to calculate, your work, health schedule, and day-to-day activities, your friends or social group, your money or self-image, and or your communication, short distance travel, or what is familiar to you. So quite a bit to consider there. Notice also this Venus-Saturn opposition is square to Mars. Both Venus and Saturn are square Mars. So that, on top of everything we just went over, is adding a greater element of stress to things. Venus is essentially triggering the Mars-Saturn square as it forms aspects, hard aspects to both of them. So this increases the potential for anger, for frustration, for maybe arguments and things of this nature. However, the likely saving grace that we have here is that Mercury in Virgo is applying to a sextile to Venus and a trine to Saturn at this time. And so theoretically, a way out of this very difficult stress that we see developing around this time is through communication, through Mercury. And so talking things out, discussing things, maybe even thinking about things if you're sort of off by yourself for whatever reason, those are all Mercury things. And so that could be the means of resolution. Next, we have on September 11th at 4:20 p.m. Eastern Time, the Sun opposite Neptune. This is also emphasizing, similar to the Pisces full moon, the contrast between the Sun and earthy practical Virgo, and this time Neptune in dreamy mystical Pisces, the conflict between reality and fantasy. Now, more specifically for you, Sagittarius, what we have here is, again, someone or something challenging you in the area of your home and family life and or your career or public image. That could also be interpreted as your private or public life. And this is requiring you to make a decision, most likely. It is involving your ego or sense of self, as well as dreams, illusion, imagination, or even confusion or fantasy. And it will most likely end up affecting your belief, spirituality, ideals, or that which is foreign to you, as well as your home and family life. So that is the Sun opposite Neptune. However, that's not the end of the story. You may notice from the chart on screen that as this is happening, the Sun is also making powerful trines to Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn in Capricorn. So trines are aspects of breakthroughs. They are removal of resistance. They facilitate speed. And so at about the middle or so of September here, we can expect breakthroughs in these various areas. Now, I'm going to get into that more specifically for you in a moment, Sagittarius, but generally speaking, what we have here with the trines to Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn are breakthroughs in the area of, or breakthroughs involving, let's put it this way, an expansion of your worldview with Jupiter, deep emotional experiences or inner transformation with Pluto, and breakthroughs involving reality, limitation, obstacles, authority figures with the trine to Saturn. Now, this, of course, is taking place, or the Capricorn conglomeration, we should say, the Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn, are in your second house of money and self-image and values. And so you can expect any of those topics to be involved in these sort of mid-month September breakthroughs for you, and quite possibly connected to what we went over with the Sun opposition to Neptune itself. Next, we have on September 17th at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, the new moon in Virgo. This is a very earthy and practical new moon, as it is taking place in earthy practical Virgo. A very logical, mental, analytical new moon, perhaps, marking the beginning of a new lunar cycle and signaling the flavor of the 4 weeks to come. This is made even more so the case with the powerful trine that this new moon is in to Saturn in Capricorn. Saturn is interested in making things real and bringing things down to earth and into the physical realms. And so this is a very earthy and like reality-based new moon indeed. And again, with the trines, it may involve some breakthroughs. And for you, Sagittarius, this new moon is taking place in your 10th house of career and public image, so you may see some new beginnings in that area. And then, of course, the trine to Saturn in your second house involving money or self-image, I should say money and or self-image. You may see some breakthroughs as well as new beginnings in your career or your money life. So that's some exciting stuff right there. The final aspect that we will go over in this video is none other than Mercury opposite Mars on September 24th at 6:47 a.m. Eastern Time. This is an aspect of anger, arguments, conflicts, angry words, angry exchanges, as we have Mercury, the planet of communication, opposing Mars, the angry planet. Now, for you, Sagittarius, this is taking place in your 5th and 11th house axis. And so we yet again have someone or something likely challenging you in the area of your friends or social group and or your creative self-expression involving communication or what you write, study, talk, or think about, as well as focused action, motivation, desire, or willpower that is requiring you to make a decision, and that will most likely end up affecting your major relationships, your career or public image, your creative self-expression, and or how you spend time alone or your enemies. So that's quite a bit to chew on right there. But the story doesn't end with that. Notice also that similar to what we had with Venus earlier this month, Mercury is triggering that Mars-Saturn square that we have talked so much about this month by making an opposition to Mars and a square to Saturn. And so we have that added element of stress as well. Saturn sort of bringing the limitation down, saying no, and causing us to feel the oppressive weight of Saturn that much more in this situation. However, another interesting factor here is that in medieval astrology, this configuration would be said to qualify as one where a planet would be accepting the management, and that planet is Saturn. And when a planet accepts the management, it very often acts as a judge or mediator between, in this case, two opposing parties, those represented by Mercury and Mars. So I think that's what a lot of people will be experiencing. And another reason that I think that's especially likely this time, that it's some kind of authority figure stepping in to help reconcile or be like the judge or something for these two opposing parties, is because Saturn itself is already the planet of authority. And so that makes it even more likely. So remember also for you, Sagittarius, that again, Saturn is in your second house of money and self-image right now and values. And so someone that is somehow connected with your financial life or somehow connected with your self-image or what you value may be the person who acts as the judge or the mediator or whatever kind of in-between person they are between these two opposing parties. Now, also keep in mind, I've been mentioning this to more and more signs this month because I think it's important to remember this conflict that we see with Mercury opposite Mars is not necessarily going to involve you as one of the people in the conflict. Like, in other words, this could be two people in conflict in other parts of your life. And the fact that they are in conflict certainly affects you, but you are not directly involved in the conflict. Or in other words, you are not one of the two people in conflict. That may be a possibility, or for other people, you may very well indeed be one of those in conflict. Now, again, like for you specifically, Sagittarius, with it happening in your 5th and 11th house axis, I would say it's far more likely that like perhaps a friend of yours or someone that you're at least acquainted with is in a conflict with someone that is somehow involved with your fun, or maybe even one of your children. The 5th house is also children, or even a lover. The 5th house can be lovers. So perhaps a friend in conflict with a lover, or an acquaintance in conflict with one of your children, or one of those combinations essentially. That would be, I think, particularly likely for those of the sign of Sagittarius. So, but anyway, dear Sagittarius, that is about it for September. So let me just try to sum this up for you, though, give you a general conclusion. So September is not an easy month. I'm not going to sugarcoat shit for you. That's not what I do. That is not what I, as Poetic Heretic, do. I tell it to you like it is to the best of my ability. September is not an easy month. It's filled with frustration. For me, it all comes back to that Mars-Saturn square. It's very stressful. We want to push forward so damn badly right now, but we are unable to. Well, it's like this. Either we're unable to, or we cannot move forward. We cannot push forward as fast as we want to. It's like, and what it almost seems like in my own life, I don't know if it's manifesting like this for other people, but it certainly is for me. It's like, yes, we can push forward, but only very, very slowly right now. And like, only if we do everything just right and go through all the sort of arduous processes and the deal with the rules and regulations and all that crap. We have to do it like in a very specific and very like disciplined way. And that's the only way that we can move forward. And I think the reason for that, I think the reason that it's working for myself like that, and I would suspect that it would work for other people like that, and again, this applies to everyone of every sign, is because when you take the time to do things right, to do things very thoroughly and all of that, then you are, in fact, honoring the energy of Saturn. And thus, Saturn is giving you more and more of a pass when you do that, because right now it's Mars versus Saturn. So, yes, that is what we have. We are not out of the wicked woods of 2020 yet. However, I will say, for what we are experiencing over the next couple months or next few months, including September, it's not really likely to get any more worse than this. So we're about to see the worst of it, I would say, probably this month and or next month, October. And then finally, we can look forward to things getting better again overall. So yeah, we're not out of the wicked woods yet, but we are getting closer. Taking quite a long time, but we're getting there. So there you have it, Sagittarius. I hope you enjoyed this forecast. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe if you're not already, as I am always creating more content like this for this channel. I also want to say that despite the wretched astrological configurations we have this month, I hope you have a very good month of September indeed, or at least as good of a month as you possibly can have under these wretched conditions. And thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.